All right, today we're going to talk about what happens if we have an amplitude and a period change. So let's take a look at that. Given the cosine function, I have this amplitude, so let's let A represent amplitude. I have an amplitude of 3, meaning that my maximum is going to hit 3 and my minimum is going to hit -3. And my midline is still going to be the x-axis for now. We're going to have other videos where we are going to be shifting this up and down, and we'll have to pay attention to our midline. Now, I gave the advice that I would kind of put a dotted line here at your maximum and a dotted line here at your minimum. And the reason I would do that is as you go and you plot your points, it makes it a little bit easier that for every tick mark, you're going to either put a point on the midline, the maximum, or the minimum. And so if you have a dotted line at all three, in this case it's just the x-axis, but it will move soon. So if you have a dotted line at all three, it makes it easier to find where I'm supposed to be plotting a point. Now, our B is 1/2, but remember that we have this formula for our period. Our period is 2 pi over B. So in our case, our B being 1/2 is 2 pi over 1/2. Now, again, I can't divide by a fraction, but I can multiply by this fraction's reciprocal. So really, I could say I have 2 pi times 2. The reciprocal of 1 over 2 is 2 over 1, or 2. Now, what is 2 pi times 2? Well, that's 4 pi, meaning that my period is going to be 4 pi. So I have my amplitude of 3. I went ahead and just marked these 3 and -3. I have a period at 4 pi. Let's go ahead and make sure that our fourth tick mark then is 4 pi, whatever that distance of period is. So I'm going to make 4 pi. The way that I go through this, if I want to figure out, okay, well, what are my other tick marks? Half of 4 pi, which would be my second tick mark, would be 2 pi. Well, half of my second tick mark would give me my first tick mark. So half of 2 pi would be 1 pi. This one is not very hard to figure out, but sometimes the third tick mark can be kind of challenging to figure out. So what I do is I take my first tick mark and I multiply that by 3. So if I take my first tick mark, multiply it by 3, that gives me my third tick mark. So 3 times pi is 3 pi. You may have your own way to figure that out, and that's fine. I start with whatever my period is. I go to my fourth tick mark, and I write that down. And then I take half. And then I take half again. And I take this value, and I multiply by 3 to get my final tick mark. Here would be the negative side, so negative pi, -2 pi, -3 pi, -4 pi. And you may ask, oh, do I have to do that? Yes. Yes, you do. So now we have our period set up, we have our amplitude set up, so now we just need to graph this function. We need to put points on every midline, minimum, and maximum. How do I do that? Where does cosine start? Cosine starts at the maximum, right? Because the cosine of 0 is 1. And in our parent function, 1 is our maximum. In this case, our amplitude is 3, so our maximum is 3. So cosine is going to start at my maximum. Now, if I'm already at my max, I can't go anywhere other than down, right? So my next tick mark, I'm going to be on the midline. And then my next tick mark on the minimum. And then midline, and then max. So this is why I suggest having the dotted lines. It just makes it a little bit easier as you kind of get out and graph these. And so, if I come back around, maximum, midline, minimum, midline, maximum. And if I were to draw this, we have this larger graph, amplitude of 3, longer period of 4 pi. And so this would be our cosine function that has an amplitude of 3, and it has a b value of 1/2, which means its period, or distance before it starts to repeat, would be a distance of 4 pi.